From Kyle, Texas, it's my dad, Marty, Seldom Used Reserve Coleman. And from West Orange, New Jersey, it's Casey the Beef Cregan. I'm Parker Coleman, and it's time for the show you've been waiting for all week, Sluggo.
Casey, what about that new intro from young Parker Coleman tonight?
That was awesome, man. It's nice to we've been teasing the fact that we want to make ourselves more personable, but bringing the boy on episode 6, that's awesome.
Well,
very cool to be introduced by him.
He's got a busy schedule these days, and it's hard to fit those 12 seconds into 24 hours of the iPad. So fits us in somewhere in between his YouTube videos and his research on LeBron.
I feel honored that we were able to, a couple of 40, 50-somethings, are able to get him away from the iPad for a minute to say a couple lines.
This is about it, about a minute. So we're good to go. Hey, I'm going to dub this one. I don't know what we're going to call this episode yet. I kind of make it up as it happens, what we talk about most, or what's the biggest theme. But I'm going to start out thinking this is the good news version of Sluggo, right? We've had a lot of bad news ever since this year started. So we're going to try and make this one the good news. I'm sure some bad news will slip in there. But one of the things I was thinking about, since you and I've never actually met in person and don't know what the other likes to do, what do you and Mrs. Cregan do for fun? Where do you go out to eat in New Jersey, assuming you could?
Well, if we could, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday. I wish we could just go out, sit at a bar, and have a beer. Where do the missus and I like to go? Man, we'll go anywhere, and we'll try anything, at least once. We're very lucky here where I am in the state of New Jersey, the northern part of New Jersey, in that we have delicacies from all over the world. And like I said, we'll try anything. There's a great little town not too far from me called Montclair, New Jersey. Some of those out there listening know where that is, and there's just foodie restaurant for days. We really like to go there and try out whatever we can there, whenever we can. A little tougher with the 2.5-year-old, but if my mom and dad will take them for a night. We're absolutely hitting there, or a little town called Morristown, New Jersey as well. Same idea, great little nightlife, little foodie towns, and we're in by 10:30, but still, it's still a nice night out.
Oh, 10 or 10:30, I'd be sleeping on the way home by then. Well, my wife is much like you guys. She likes to try everything. She likes everything from crawfish to steak to, whatever she can get her hands on, Cajun food or anything. I'm a little more mundane and routine. But a couple of things we like to do together is of course, steak at like a Ruth's Chris downtown Austin. That's a big night for us, right? Go all the way to town, right? Go all the way to Austin, have a Ruth's Chris. But our favorite thing to do is the Salt Lick. Now, if you leave my neighborhood, and I've talked about the Salt Lick barbecue, they should be paying us, by the way. If you leave my neighborhood and get up to the corner up there, you'll see a sign that says Driftwood, Texas, 12 miles. And the only thing in Driftwood is the Salt Lick, basically, right? There's not a stoplight. There's nothing. There's the Salt Lick there. And I was thinking about the Salt Lick the other day because I was talking to our buddy from the Pit Boss Barbecue Sauce Company, Terje. Now, here's the good news. Here's the start of the good news. I mean, besides we're talking about food, is in that conversation, Terje let me know he's going to send us some more sauce. Now, he didn't say what kind he was going to send, but that's not real important to me, right? It could be the mesquite or the hickory smoked cola or the 3 pepper sauce I'm okay with. But my man, Terje, if you're listening to this, and I hope you are, I am not sure I can handle the Raging Bull. No, I don't know what the Raging Bull is. The Raging Bull, but it sounds like it's going to hurt me.
Send it up here. Send it up north. The little northerner, the Yankee, wants some Raging Bull. I got the hickory smoked cola in the fridge, man, and it's delicious. It really is. I put it on just about everyone. I'm the type of person who will dip anything. You give me cold pizza, I'm going to dip it in something. And I've started using the hickory smoked cola, man. And I thought like the cola was Columbia. No, it's cola. It's pretty neat. The flavor is awesome. So if you get a chance, definitely try it out.
Really cool. So, okay, Terje, I'll take the cola this time. the beef wants the bull. So there's our, we put our orders in for the Pitball Sauce Company. Everybody out there, check them out on Facebook. It's a great local Greenville small company, puts together a great product, and he's been kind enough to send us a couple of jars and keep us happy. And you know, I take it to the Salt Lake. I love their barbecue and the ribs, and their sausage is okay, but I don't particularly like their sauce. So Terje is hooking us up, and we thank you for that, Terje.
Yes, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it, and you got yourself a customer for as long as you'll do it, and as long as we're doing it. So, and probably beyond, to be honest with you.
Good deal. Hey, another bit of good news. I don't know if you can see behind me over here on the tote board. 5,647 listens and views over our first 5 episodes.
Ooh, that's awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening, clicking for a minute, an hour, whatever it is. We can't thank you enough. It's awesome.
No, we certainly appreciate that. We had really no idea what numbers were going to be before we started this, but I knew my VP of research, Parker Coleman, told me people want video, right? And at 13 years old, he knew that. And I knew these numbers would be up there considering the size of the audience on Seldom Used Reserve. But 5,600 over our first 5 episodes. We thank you, and the trailer. So we thank you so much for that. And that was really good news. I want to also give a special shout out to one person who likes every video we put out. And we really appreciate her. The problem is I don't know how to pronounce her name. It's either Hali or Hali. I'm going to go with Hali, Hali Vasquez. Thank you very much for liking and appreciating what we're doing. We really appreciate that, Hali/Hali.
Absolutely. That's awesome too. Thank you.
And our last bit of good news, not our last bit of good news, but on to football good news. Everybody's been down about the season and what's going to happen. Are we even going to have a season? But it hit me the other night, Beef, and I texted you when it hit me, and I said, hey, you know what this Ivy League moving to the spring means? Year-round college football. Can you believe it? You got to look at it. You got to look at the good side of things, right? We're going to have college football year-round, assuming they play in the fall. I mean,
that's the big assumption, isn't it? But I like it too, and I don't know if there's going to be a bigger Ivy League football fan than yours truly right here that you're looking at right now. I'm going to follow it because if it's on TV and I can't get everyday college baseball, I'm probably going to be watching an Ivy League game, at least every Saturday. That's just how sick I am and lover of college football. So that's pretty exciting. I like that you twisted this bad news into some good news. So 12 months of college football.
When we started this concept of having this show about college football, you know, we tossed around some ideas and we tossed around a few this week. And I was like, well, hey, you know, you used to be manager for Clemson basketball and I played on a horrible high school basketball team. So maybe we could do basketball too. You know, I was great friends, air quotes, with Monty Lee for about 10 minutes. So, you know, you follow the Clemson baseball team around so maybe we can do college baseball, but we don't need to right now. We're going to have college football all year round. And when February comes, we're not going to be talking recruiting. We're going to be talking Yale and Harvard.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm getting so fired up, and we're where, July, whatever day we're on. I don't even know what month we're in with this mess, but it's July something or other. We're going to be talking Yale and Brown. And oh, man, I can't wait. Can't wait. I'm going to learn their mascots. I'm going to dig deep. I'm going to make all the phone calls I possibly can. We're going to have some players and coaches on, getting them big.
Good deal. Hey, here's the weird thing. You know, it's July 15th. You know how I know that? It's tax day in the middle of the summer, right? It's July 15th. Just what a strange time we're living in, man. It's just really, really incredible. And another bit of good news, Ohio State last week, they had delayed their workouts, but now they're back. And I say this is good news, and you've seen this, Casey, on our Facebook group. Everybody's throwing out bad news. This team has 22, you know, this team has 25. Nobody ever testing positive. I mean, no one ever says, it's almost like people don't think you get over this, like it's permanent, you know. people can get over this disease. And the good news is, after a week delay, Ohio State's back and practicing. I think we need some good news. Hence why we started the show talking about food and barbecue and then went to year-round football. But I think we need some good news, and seeing that Ohio State is back at it and guys are recovering from this is good news in my book.
That's a great thing that at least we know that there's one place that's alive and kicking. I will throw this off the trail just a little bit. I have a really good friend and college roommate that is the head coach at Goose Creek High School in around Charleston, South Carolina. And I texted him today to kind of try to get some insight, some inside information from someone at least in the football world. Yes, it's high school football, but football is paramount in South Carolina. And he said they've been practicing since June 8th, and they have no kids that have tested positive, and they're planning on starting school August 24th, face-to-face in the buildings, and he thinks that they're still going to play. That's coming from a head coach in South Carolina. So that's another bit of good news, though, right? I mean, you'd think.
Absolutely. By the way, one of my sisters lives in Goose Creek, probably not 2 miles from Goose Creek High School. So we have that in common. That is good news. And Parker's school is due to start on August 20th. He'll be in high school at Hayes County High School across the street from the house. And they are talking about providing option. You can go if you want. You can stay home if you want. I think they're talking about a face mask if you go. And he wants to go, and I think he really needs to be in school as long as it's, relatively safe. And the numbers that you're talking about, and I heard something this week that I had no idea, but the CDC never recommended closing schools. That was a decision made by the school administrators, but the CDC never said close schools. The younger people have a tendency to either not get this, as you said about the Goose Creek High football team, or they're obviously generally healthier, stronger, and can fight off the infection quicker. So that is really, really good news.
But it's great to have a team like Ohio State that's out there front and center, that they're back at it, they're getting healthy. I mean, I think that we need more of that. That's great to have one right now. We need more of that.
Well, and I think we need to hear it more often. I think it's happening. Like, you hear how many tested positive at Clemson this week, and then the week after that, and the week after that, but you never hear, hey, that the first 9 or 8 or how many ever it is are over it now and back at practice. That doesn't sell. That doesn't get clicks. So we're not, and maybe they just don't know, right? I don't know. But it just seems to me that we never hear the good news. It's almost like you get this and you never get over it. That's not true. I know that from personal experience. But even at my age, you can get it and you can get over it. I'm not saying it's not serious. I'm not saying you don't need to take it serious. I'm not saying don't wear a face mask. I'm just saying it's you can get over it in most instances. Need to be careful for those with underlying conditions, and for those folks that have a tendency to have more trouble with this than others.
Look at us. We're getting public service announcements out there. I mean, we do it all here at Slug Up.
Well, I'm just trying to be careful because I know somebody out there is going to say, well, you're my third cousin removed, whatever. All I'm saying is it's not something you're going to have to live with forever. People can get over it and move on. Speaking of moving on, our good news is over now, Beef. We're going to talk about some of the games that we're going to miss out on because of the decision of some of the conferences to go only conference games. Games like Ohio State and Oregon, Clemson and South Carolina potentially, right? LSU and Texas, Oklahoma and Tennessee, Alabama and Southern Cal, Georgia and Virginia, Penn State, Virginia Tech, Baylor and Ole Miss, and let's not forget Boston College and Kansas.
The rematch from last year.
That was a great game last year, actually.
It was a Friday night. It was awesome.
And unfortunately, we're going to have to miss out on Akron and Clemson. But, I was looking through this schedule, picking some of these games out before I ran across an article that had them all listed for me. And it was interesting, $18. I found where North Carolina was going to start the season at UCF, and then follow that up by playing Auburn in a neutral site game. So North Carolina, who I've been giving heck to all preseason, could be the big quote winner from this conference only games. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good point there, because but don't we get, I don't know the right phrase, but don't the ACC people get yelled at for not scheduling a hard schedule and that their schedule's tougher? Or is that just in conference? It's probably just in conference, but let me go where I'm going. If North Carolina is scheduling UCF and then Auburn, that's a heck of a start to the season. I mean, if they win the gamut, I mean, we're not going to see it, so this is all hypothetical. But if they win both of those games, one on the road, one at neutral site, they're in the top 5. I don't know.
Who knows?
But the game that I'm really upset about, the Oregon-Ohio State game that we're going to miss. It was early in the season. I listened to a lot of Pac-12 talk because I don't know enough about them, I don't think. And because they're very high and mighty, they believe that they are the SEC fan of the West. They love each other. And so I've heard nothing but great about Oregon, Mario Cristobal. So I was thinking that's going to be a test at least for Ohio State. Ohio State probably arguably number 1 or number 2 in the country, depending on who you're asking. Oregon probably to start the year a 5 or 6 spot in the nation, depending on who you're asking, at least top 10. Man, when they said that game was going off and the Big Ten was just going to play conference games, something died inside of me, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. But that was one I was looking forward to for a year, and now I'm not going to get it.
Well, no, as you were talking, I was thinking Oregon's also a big winner because they don't have to play Ohio State. And I think in week 1 or 2, I don't remember which one's which, they're going to play North Dakota State in, my man with 42 touchdowns and no interceptions. So Oregon's a big winner too. Oregon and North Carolina seem to be the big winners of the conference-only decisions made by some of these conferences. So let's move over to start talking about some coaches and some hot seat rankings. One of the things to come out of this COVID also is a reluctance to fire your coach, A, because it's really obviously extenuating circumstances. B, they haven't been around their team or players. C, what if they only play 6 games, and they only lose, quote, 3? So there's just a myriad of reasons for not firing your coach. And, of course, the big one, D, everybody's going to lose money this year, right? And a lot of teams aren't going to be able to afford the number. For instance, Will Muschamp, somebody threw out a number, I don't remember what it was, they would owe him if they fired him. But I think it was over $20 million, if I remember correctly. So
after this year, it's 13. But
okay.
Right now, it's 21. After this season, it'll be 13.
Still, significant amount of money.
I'll take it.
If you think about it, Iowa State said they were going to lose $40 million if there are no sports this fall. They'll still get, I assume, if they play, they'll get their SEC money, their TV money. South Carolina, I'm speaking about. But still, they're going to lose money, and they're not going to be able to afford to get rid of Muschamp for $13 million. But I found a list. It was intriguing. How about that? That's my new word, intriguing. That word is free. He had, and this is from Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports, by the way. And he had these guys in tiers, and the tiers were win or be fired, start improving now, pressure is mounting, all good for now, safe and secure, and untouchable. And he only had 6 guys that were win or be fired. And let's walk through this list here. Clay Helton of Southern Cal, Chip Kelly of UCLA, Scott Frost of Nebraska, which I think this is his second year, right? Coming
That's
up.
surprising.
In a weird year, too, so I don't agree with that. Dana Dimmel of UTEP, whatever. Randy Edsel of Connecticut, the worst team in the history of college football. Derek Mason of Vanderbilt. Those were your guys that were win or be fired. And I get it. I don't think I don't think any of them are, I don't know about UTEP and Connecticut. I could see those guys getting fired. But again, can they afford to fire those guys, And they're realizing they don't have the multi-million-dollar guaranteed contracts at the level of an SEC team, for instance, a Will Muschamp. But still, those schools certainly aren't going to be able to afford to be paying 2 or 3 head coaches.
No, and it's funny too that I read the article that you had for this, and it said Randy Edsall, he has 3 wins or something like that at UConn, and they left their conference, the American Conference, to go to the non-football conference, the Big East, to go back to the Big East. So they really don't even have a football conference. So they even left all that money, the football money, whatever, even little it may be, for a Group of 5 conference, still not little, to go to just a basketball-centric conference. So that's a tough one. The name that really stuck out to me here, and like I said, I read the article. It's a great article by Dennis Dodd. Derek Mason. Now, he was highly recruited, for lack of a better phrase, we're going to move to recruiting later, from Stanford. So he came over from Stanford and was highly touted, and it's Vanderbilt in the SEC. I'm sorry. They have recruiting restrictions in football. Apparently they don't in baseball, but that's another story for another day. But that's tough, man. And he's doing a great job. He's a African-American coach who's doing a great job, who loves his kids. He's winning games. His numbers, I think last year he was 3-9, and he doesn't have a winning record, obviously, in the SEC, but that's such a tough job. James Franklin did a nice job there before he moved on to Penn State. I really think Derek Mason's doing a good job. Who's going to go to Vanderbilt? I hate that question. It's such a rhetorical. I'm sure any stepping stone person may go, plus they can say they coached in the SEC. I think Derek Mason's doing a heck of a job to be in this. Obviously, this is opinion piece. To win or be fired is tough, man. Tough there.
And he's, and I know James Franklin didn't always have a great record at Vanderbilt, but he had a good record.
He got him to bowl games.
Yeah, he got him to bowl games most years. He had a good record, but the problem here is Derek Mason is the guy who followed the guy, right? So it'd be like almost like following Nick Saban at Alabama or Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Dabo, I think, is 130-31. So you could follow Dabo and go 65-20, and they go, what the heck? You're not doing good enough. You want to be the guy that follows the guy that follows the guy.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Next on the list, on the 4, which again, the 4 is start improving now. This is the list that I thought was actually a little more interesting. Will Muschamp, Tom Herman, Kevin Sumlin, who I think is a dead man walking, Philip Montgomery at Tulsa, who cares, and my favorite coach, Manny Diaz of Miami. And so 3 of these that I wanted to pick out was Muschamp, Herman, and Diaz. He had an interesting detail on Muschamp. He's 48 years old. He's been in the NFL. He's been a defensive coordinator at some of the biggest football schools in America, including Texas, where one time he was the head coach in waiting. That didn't work out so well. And this is his second SEC head job. And if you take out the season where he benefited from Urban Meyer's players at Florida, his first season at Florida where he was 11-2, he's actually 43-44 overall. And that's, yes, it's SEC, but it's also losing to the Citadel, and he didn't lose to the Citadel, but not losing to Kentucky. He's done that several times, right? And he hasn't beaten Clemson at all. So there's obvious reasons for Muschamp being on this list, but as we talked at the top of this segment, I don't think this is the year to fire him.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to fire him, and I don't know. I happened to talk to a friend, co-worker today who's a South Carolina alum and big money donor, and he's sick of it, doesn't want Muschamp to be the coach anymore. He hates that he keeps spending his money to drive. He lives in the Charlotte area, drive 2 hours every Saturday to be disappointed. So there's definitely murmurs. Obviously, that's a small sample size, but there's definitely murmurs out there that he's not the guy for it. He did mention Mike Bobo being there. It's finally a guy that Muschamp is friends with. He's the offensive coordinator. Georgia alum, turned down Georgia to come to South Carolina. That's what friends are for, I guess. And it may be the first offensive coordinator that Muschamp's had that kind of looks at Muschamp and says, you just worry about the defense. I got this offense. So maybe there's big things coming South Carolina. They still have a rough schedule according to all the pundits. I hate that schedule talk, but they do on paper. They're playing tough SEC West teams this year, always playing Texas A&M as well, and Clemson. So they have a tough schedule on paper. You know, what's good to keep them 6-6 maybe if they have a full schedule? I don't know. 4-8 ain't going to keep them. I don't think they'll figure it out. They'll have enough boosters to pay that $13 million even if they happen to lose money. That's just my opinion. Going out on a twig, as you said last week.
Well, 4-8, that's kind of where I see it. 5-7 or better, which I don't think they're going to be better than 6-6, but 5-7 and 6-6 would keep him. 4-8 would be on a limb. I think it's on the twig, like you said, because that would be their second straight 4-8 season, right? And that's just not going to work. But Manny Diaz at at Miami. Interesting, last year he was down at a 1, which was safe. And this year he's fallen all the way to a 4, which is really close to the worst category per Dennis Dodd you can get to. But when you think about it, they got shut out by Louisiana Tech. They lost to FIU and Duke. I mean, just horrible. I've seen this guy operate. I saw him when he was defensive coordinator. We've talked about this before at Texas, when they talked about how handsome he was. Let me tell you something. If you've got a defensive coordinator at Texas and you're talking about how handsome he is, he stinks. And he proved me right. So I think, Manny, it's a matter of time. They're recruiting well. We'll have a recruit on the list that committed to Miami this week. I'm doubtful he's going to be there long enough to reap the rewards.
Do you think he thinks he probably should have gone to Temple and stayed at Temple because he was their head coach for a day? You know, he had no real pressure there. You wouldn't think that. I guess there is pressure at Miami too, but it's a small school, private school in the state of Florida. You figure it's easy to recruit. You just get a defense, get somebody with brains to call the offense. He just didn't seem to have it last year. They had a revolving door at quarterback. It looks like that's going to be the case again. No, they got Derek King. Never mind. Tate Martell, the Ohio State transfer, probably won't play, but Derek King may solidify that role. But last year was brutal, man. They were running 3 and 4 quarterbacks out there. They had no idea what the heck they were doing on offense. That offensive coordinator looked – I probably could have made better calls than he did. He looked lost on the sideline. Forget his name, but yeah. Well, I grew up a Miami fan, so it kind of hurts a little bit. I'm not so much anymore. My cousin went there, so that was a little home. Not anymore. And your lack of like for Manny Diaz is rubbing off on me a little bit, and I don't really have a reason for it. But
well, here's the deal, and I've mentioned this before, and I hate to beat the dead Manny, but when he got hired at Texas, he was following Muschamp, and I always forget the other guy's name, the other defense coordinator at Texas who actually did some grad work at Clemson. He was following very well-known, very high-paid defensive coordinators. And then I look at his resume and I see 1 year at Mississippi State and a bunch of years at little small schools. And I say, well, how did he get to Texas? How do you do this? How do you go from having Will Muschamp as your defense coordinator and interviewing NFL assistants to be your defensive coordinator, and you end up with Manny Diaz? I mean, I think it was the worst decision Mac made, and I think it was the beginning of the end of Mac at Texas. Some guys just aren't. Gene Chizik was the name I was trying to think.
I got it. I looked it up. I was cheating, but I got it.
I think that was the worst decision Mac made in the beginning of his end at Texas because they couldn't stop anybody. And he may be a very good coach, but I don't think he's a head coach. And not every assistant is a head coach. You know, who knows if Brent Venables will ever be a head coach or if he ever wants to be. he seems to know what he's good at, and that's what he wants to do, and he's very well paid for it. Now, Diaz has some other things. He's from Miami. I think his dad used to be the mayor of Miami, so that could explain why he's there and he's well known. I just don't think he's a very good head coach. He could prove me wrong. I hope he does. Well, not really, but I just don't think he's a very good head coach, whether he's at Miami or wherever, Temple. I think he'd ride what was there for a couple of years and then crash and burn.
No, Temple, the expectations are low, so you win 5-6 games. Even though when they had Matt Rule, they were competitive, top 25 worthy. I just think that's enough for up there. That's going to get him another job. Whereas Miami, if he crashes and burns in Miami, where's Al Golden? Where's some of these guys that didn't win at Miami?
Well,
coordinator somewhere maybe.
Yeah, or FIU or one of those smaller school, FAU, one of those type schools. Oh, Willie Taggart may have something to say about that. All right, let's move over to recruiting. We got a bunch of recruiting news. Who knew July was the hot month for recruiting, right? It seems like every day we have a stud or two committing. But the biggest news is somebody who committed last week, Tony Grimes at North Carolina, has reclassified and will theoretically be on the field this season, this fall in North Carolina if we have a season. Really big move for the Tar Heels potentially if he's ready to play.
Yeah, it really is. And one thing that I need the questions answered is, how does he graduate? How does he do a full year's worth of classes over the summer? I don't understand it. I know kids are doing it. I know they do it in basketball all the time. I just can't believe it's as easy as saying, you know what, guys, I'm reclassifying and I'm going to go play this season. I just think it's a lot of work for the kid. So God bless him. I'm excited to see him play because he is getting a lot of love and a lot of pub, especially for this move. But it'll be cool to see him on the field if we're able to. If he makes it on the field, what happens if he gets to a spring or summer or fall practice, whatever they are at this point, and tweaks a hammy or something and doesn't play, has to get redshirted? Was it worth the reclassification? I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he waits a year and gets redshirted again. Maybe he's a year ahead. I don't know what the thinking was, but there is rumors that his high school will not be playing a season this year. Virginia, obviously, I know they made Arlington at least, which is on the other side of the state, said that no students will be back in school till January. They've already come out with it. So that may be statewide. So maybe there is no football in Virginia. Why not? Let's just go at least lift some weights, be with my future teammates, see what happens. So I wish him nothing but the best. I think he's going to be a star, and we'll see what happens.
Now, you mentioned something I really didn't give it much thought, but it's a great point, because it's one thing for him to say in January, I'm reclassifying, we'll have the spring semester in the summer. It's another thing in the middle of July to say I'm reclassifying and I'm going to North Carolina. I'll be there August 1st, 2 weeks. So, maybe he had all his classes already done and he just needed one class. I don't know how the schools work these days. I've got a kid that's going to high school in a month. I should figure this out, right?
I'll be honest with you. We have 2 in this house that are going to high school. We don't do that here. That doesn't happen in New Jersey. If they need an extra year of high school, or if they want to leave early, they go to a prep school for a year. They don't reclassify here, even as good as a lot of the basketball teams are in the state and a lot of basketball programs are. Kids still aren't doing that here. So it's very foreign to me. I don't understand. It happens all the time in the South, all the time in Florida. I hear it, especially the basketball side, but I don't know how it works. So I still don't, and I probably should have done research, but I didn't.
I can tell you this. Parker, my son, was starting high school in a month, I think, on August 20th, as we talked about earlier. He's walking in there with, I think, 3.5 credits already of high school because of the classes he's taken in middle school. So theoretically, he could do that if he wanted to. He could take classes next summer. And we've already talked about it. Actually, we've talked about him taking college credits before he ever gets out of high school. So, yes, it can be done. I don't know about this late. That just sounds a little weird to me. But
it is North Carolina, and they.
Well, yeah, he might not have to take classes at North Carolina. Those things are optional. All right, last time a player decommitted from Clemson, it was huge news because he was the #1 player in the nation, and it hadn't happened, I think, since 2016, except for an academic casualty or academic issues that led to that decommitment. But now we have another one, and that another decommitment from Clemson. Jordan Hancock decommitted, and that doesn't seem to be. There's a lot of talk around Corey Foreman and COVID, and does he want to be closer to home as part of his decision making? And he wanted to take visits, obviously, but this is a young man from Georgia, so that doesn't, it's not all the way across the country. Do we have any idea of what happened with Jordan Hancock and why he decommitted from Clemson?
Something I read today said that he had a family member, I don't know exactly which one, so I don't want to put it out there, but that had a cancer diagnosis, but apparently it's in extreme remission, so he doesn't have to stay, quote unquote, close to home. So it's no longer an issue. There's no longer a worry. All signs are pointing that he's going to commit to Ohio State at any time now, and that they've always been kind of there. Before he committed verbally to Clemson, Ohio State was all of the recruiting pundits' favorites. The crystal ball was pointed right to Ohio State. So it may have been a premature thing. I don't know. He said to somebody on 24/7 that it was depth chart related, meaning he couldn't get on the field at the slot cornerback quick enough at Clemson. Looking at the depth chart, I'm not sure how true that is, if it's just lip service or not. Doesn't matter. The kid's 17, 18 years old. He doesn't really want to be at Clemson, apparently. So he's probably going to take his talents to Ohio State. Once again, wish him the best of luck. He's a high school kid. I didn't know what I wanted to do at 17, 18 years old. So I don't have any problem with these kids committing and decommitting. So
yeah, absolutely. It's not a big deal to me. I just didn't know if it was a trend or something that was happening at Clemson below the surface. That was, there seemed like two totally different reasons. Foreman wanted to take his visits. COVID happened. Maybe he wants to be closer to home. It's a weird year. So Clemson now has two, which is really, it's unique for Clemson.
The concern is that he's a high school teammate of Barrett Carter, the inside linebacker who just verbally committed, and there's talk. Carter reaffirmed his pledge to Dabo last night, but there's talk that they were a package deal. So this one's not over yet. I think the Hancock ship has sailed at Clemson. We hope that the Barrett Carter ship is anchored good in Lake Hartwell, but we're not quite sure. So we'll see. It's recruiting. They're 17, 18.
There's no bigger misnomer. It really doesn't apply to Clemson very often, though, this year it has, but there's really no bigger misnomer in the world than a commitment in college football, right? That's why previous to this show, Casey, I rarely, if ever, talked recruiting. Even though I know people want to hear it, they want to talk about it. It was ridiculous to try and figure out, where these kids were going, when they committed. Some of them committed 4 different places, 1 a week. It didn't make any sense to me to spend time doing it. But I know people want to talk about it, and it's actually kind of interesting as I dig into it a little bit.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I'm not digging too deep. I'm definitely surface. I'm going to let 24/7, Rivals, ESPN, whoever else be the experts. I'm going to give my opinion on it, but it's going to be pretty surface, to be honest with you. I want to watch film, but like I said last week, I'm not going to judge a kid's hip swivel at 17 years old to see, his back pedal's good, but I'm not going to check where his hips are. And I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize now. I'm just not going to be able to do it to the best. Even the fake guy that's out there on social media, Ray UGA, he does a better recruiting synopsis than I will. But I do like it. I do like talking about the kids. I'm excited for these kids because they're getting an opportunity, and it's a lot of fun that they're able to have a little fun with it. Social media. The good part about social media is that these kids come up with these great videos and great commitment videos that are and they're giving love, and you know what, they deserve it because most of them have worked very hard to get this opportunity. So it's really pretty nice. Obviously, we may not hear from a lot of them for 2, 3, 4 years, and you forget about them. But you love this competition. It gives us a little competition in the summertime where my school's better. We're going to get this kid, or you get disappointed when one decommits. But at the end of the day, you just hope the best for these young men.
These young men. Speaking of young men, Alabama, Kendrick, again with the name, not sure. Blackshire,
Yeah.
Blackshire.
Yep.
A 4-star, number 152 overall, the number 10 inside linebacker from Duncanville, Texas to Alabama. So Tom Herman's fence, I don't know if he tried to build a fence around Duncanville, but he's going to Alabama. What do you know about Mr. Blackshire?
What part of Texas is Duncanville?
Dallas area.
Okay, so he's not terribly far. I mean, it's not that close to Austin, right? But it's not terribly far.
200, 225, somewhere like that.
All right. Well, I was surprised that he chose Alabama just because of the distance, and Texas usually doesn't lose Texas recruits to anybody but Oklahoma. Kendrick Blackshire, I've looked at a couple literally just a couple. Looks like a big, strong kid, and he looks like he's got a body that can fill out and even maybe play an end position. But that's just my ignorance there. Inside linebacker, has a lot of speed, so maybe you don't want to bulk him up too much. But Alabama getting another inside linebacker, I think we're going to be hearing about this kid in the next couple of years.
Yeah, they seem to develop these guys really, really well. We have a couple of other ones. A 4-star, Greg Penn, the third, ended up going to LSU. Now, he had a final 3 of LSU, Maryland, and South Carolina. Maybe it's just me, but there seem to be some weird groupings of schools. You wouldn't necessarily put those 3 together, would you? LSU, the kings of college football. Maryland, the dregs, your hat. Maryland, the dregs of college football. And South Carolina, what? I mean, it's just a weird final 3 from my perspective. But anyway, he committed to LSU.
Yeah, I think the South Carolina thing was high school teammate. I think he's at DeMatha in Maryland.
Yes.
That's probably why Maryland got a look, because, Greg Loxley is trying to keep those kids in state. Marshawn Lloyd, a big-time running back recruit for South Carolina, he's going to be playing this year, was a high school teammate. Maybe they're friends. Maybe that's why South Carolina was given a look. You're thinking when they come on these visits, these coaches aren't dummies. They're going to set them up with somebody they know, someone they think they're really going to, work well with. I'm sure Lloyd showed him nothing but a great time. Parties, girls, whatever, I'm sure there was a whatever the kid liked to do, they knew it. So they just continued to ride on that. But at the end of the day, the smoke clears, and the probably the right choice for a 4-star kid. And out of those 3 is where he ended up, and that's LSU.
Yeah, and he's actually the number 6 inside linebacker per Rival, so he's higher rated than Blackshire, which is almost said it again. I'm putting 50 cents in the jar for that one.
Intriguing.
Which is intriguing. That's my new word, right? And then we have George Wilson, who did commit to South Carolina, but this is kind of South Carolina's problem, right? They're in the running for the higher ranked players, like Greg Penn, but just can't close. He ends up at LSU. And the lower ranked player, the 3-star weak side defensive end, who South Carolina is probably going to use as a buck, is my understanding, ends up at South Carolina. He had a final group of Arizona State, Penn State, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Again, kind of a weird grouping. You're all the way out west, you're south, you're north with Penn State, all over the country. But I think this is where South Carolina struggles, right? They have a whole bunch of recruits, and they're going to say, we're 15th or 20th in recruiting, but it's because of the number and not the quality of the player. They end up with the lower quality player out of these two who committed on the same day. That's why I lumped them together.
At some point, they're going to have to tip that teeter-totter over a little bit, because they do put out big numbers. And that was the joke in Florida. I had friends that were high school coaches in Florida, was that if you had a heartbeat, you were going to get an offer from Will Muschamp at Florida, and see how it worked out. It seems like he's keeping that same approach at South Carolina. If you look at the numbers and how many offers he puts out there every year, they're at the top. They're towards the top. To put it in perspective, Clemson usually puts out maybe 60 to 70 offers per class. South Carolina's upwards of closing in on 300. So if you like they used to say, if you have a heartbeat and you're decent at football, you're going to get an offer from Will Muschamp. At one point, though, you need to think that some of these higher end, they need a closer somewhere. I'm not sure who the recruiting coordinator is. I don't think it's Bobby Bentley, the former coach at school in Duncan, where Willie Corn came from, Burns. But they need a closer like a Dre Bly, like a Hartline, like, now it used to be Jeff Scott, and obviously it comes down to the head coach. But a lot of these guys the 4 and 5 stars need to build that relationship with these assistants before the head coach comes in and closes. Doesn't feel like, based on their recruits, that they're getting that. Now, they did get a Lloyd last year, a 5-star running back. I think he ended up at 5 stars. But they need more of that. They're getting 1 guy, 2 guys, maybe. They're not getting 5, 6, 4-star, 5 stars. They're not getting that. They're getting 3s, 2s. Hoping to develop hasn't shown on the football field in the Muschamp era anyway.
Well, the thing is, you can develop 1 or 2 guys, but try and develop your whole recruiting class, especially when you're playing SEC level every week, and then Clemson as your rival. Good luck. Hey, one thing he said reminded me of when Mac Brown was at Texas. He would only quote, air quotes, I do that a lot on the show, 25 guys a year, right? Because he would never officially offer anybody until they said they were coming to Texas. And he's like, the mamas are mad because I can only take 25. Oh, he is great for college football. Hey, Michigan got a 3-star wide receiver, Xavier Worthy. Now, I say a 3-star, but this guy appears to be legit because his offer list included Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and Auburn, among many others. So I don't know what kind of 3-star he is, but I could see him getting bumped up just by the list of offers there, and maybe being a 4-star before it's all over.
That tends to be the case too, and especially with a team like Alabama that comes running. If they come in early, teams like South Carolina and Will Muschamp will throw offers at these kids because obviously they see something. So yeah, I didn't watch any film on him. I missed that name, so that's on me. But yeah, with that line of schools that he had offers from, he's probably got a body on him, and he's probably raw, kind of like a Jew from Clemson, the kid from Canada. He's got the body, just maybe really raw. Obviously, he's going to Michigan, which is funny because I'm not sure they have a quarterback there that can get him the football, but shots fired, Michigan fan.
End around, bubble screen.
I mean, we thought Shea Patterson was going to be the real deal for them and the quarterback whisperer, Jim Harbaugh, but it didn't seem to be the case. He still can't beat Ohio State. But anyway, I digress, as I tend to say.
I agree. And actually, that's how I look at these guys more than I do look at if they're in the top 250, and we're talking rivals here. I look at that. But more than that, I look at, like, who's offering. I don't care if he's a 3-star. If Nick Saban says he can play wide receiver with the wide receivers that Nick Saban has, I say, yeah, he's going to be pretty good. He's going to be pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of pretty good, Deion has another kid who is a quarterback. Deion Sanders we're talking about, Shedeur Sanders. He has committed to FAU, Florida Atlantic, and Willie Taggart is there, I believe, and Willie Taggart Jr. is on that roster as a quarterback. So we got Deion's kid and Willie Taggart's kid battling out. He's a 24th ranked quarterback in the class, pro style per Rivals. Did you watch any film on Deion's son?
I did. Doesn't he have another son at South Carolina too?
Yeah, I think so.
Him?
it was playing baseball or wanted to play baseball. Yeah.
That's right. That was the big problem. I did watch a little Shador Sanders. I mean, the FAU thing, once again, if you're looking at who offered him, he had some big offers, including Florida State. Now, maybe that's a favor because of dad. I don't know.
Probably.
Three-star kid, he deserves an offer from his dad's alma mater, no question. Yeah, he looks electric. I mean, he's still the spawn of prime time. So, you know, he's going to be fast. You know, if he's going to probably have some football acumen. He's going to be smart. He looked like he can make the throws. He's a little slight, I think.
Yeah.
And that may be why he didn't have like the big time offers. But I mean, he's a dual threat kid. I hate to say it, but he is. And Clint Trickett was a big time recruiter at Florida State and old quarterback that had some problems when he was there, but a good quarterback. He's at FAU now as their top recruiter, trying to build something for Willie Taggart. I guess he went from Florida State to FAU with Willie. I think this is a great get there. I really do. I think are we going to hear from him every week? Probably not. But are we going to see little highlights, little cut-ins from games? Yeah, and I think he could be something we see coming in the future, at least developing into something really good.
Well, especially with being Deion's son, that means something to television and producers on highlight films, right? And I think you're right. If I recall right, he was 166 pounds, according to Rivals, what I saw. So, you know, just think of Deion when he was at Florida State, he was pretty slight too, even in the NFL, you know, comparatively. But this is another, I don't recall what high school he went to, but up in the Dallas area, which makes sense where, you know, Deion and the Cowboys, for example. So he's played big time high school football. So he's not at some podunk 2A school. So
it was a Christian school, I noticed.
Maybe it was a podunk 2A school, but he's played high school football in Texas. So, you know, like you said, maybe he can grow into something at FAU and develop into a quarterback. He was the 24th ranked pro style quarterback. That's no bucket of crud for Florida Atlantic. If you can get the 24th ranked quarterback, that's a good deal, whether it's Deion's son or not.
Trinity Christian in the Dallas area. Yeah, and you're exactly right. I think, especially with what Florida has, they're loaded with talent in the state. There's so many schools there, and there's talent everywhere. You go to the Immokalee, which is in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of sugarcane fields, and they chase rabbits for sport, and they catch them. So you got athletes that can run, and right there in the Miami area, I mean, yeah, to go out there and get a kid from Texas, it's saying something.
No doubt. Let's finish it up. Let's go back to something more fun, Beef, to finish this up. Now, we know that in the past, there have been college basketball games on ESPN and the ESPN family where the announcers have not been on site, right? It's a money saver. We don't want to send you to Davidson and Presbyterian. You'll sit in the studio in Charlotte or wherever it is, and you guys will sit together, generally do this basketball game remotely. Works out good. I've been forced, I'm an early riser, and I've been forced to get up and watch Korean baseball every morning. Right, every morning, and because I love baseball, and I only got a week to go. How about that? Hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, whatever, to MLB. But here's what I noticed about the remote announcers. It's Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez, I think. It's horrible, right? It's horrible. It's like me and you on this podcast. Not that we're horrible, but we're a podcast, right? We're a show on the internet. And we can say and do what we want. We're not announcing a baseball game. They are not even paying attention to the game. It's like it's like me and you sitting here talking and me looking up and going, oh, fly ball to left. You know, see if I can fit that into the conversation. And I think the difference is these guys are at their houses. They're not in a studio. You know, that's the difference for me. because they got their walls behind them, the kids are screaming or whatever, and the wife wants to go to the store. It's different. It's like you're bothering them to tell you what's going on in the game. They don't even pay attention. Some of it has to do with being Korean baseball, which they wouldn't be on TV if, the pandemic wasn't here. Let's get real. But at some level, you got to be a professional, and I don't care you're wearing tennis shoes or, whatever's on the wall behind you. It's just, they're not even paying attention to the game. It's horrible. My point here is, long rant, is I hope if college football and the NFL and any other sport that comes, Major League Baseball is going to go through it too. I hope it's not like this. I hope they're announcing the games like they care and like they're into the game, and not like we're bothering them to tell us, pitching change or whatever. Because that's how I feel watching those guys in the morning.
And that stinks to wake up to, too. You're getting excited. You're going to watch some baseball, and then you got these two momos that are talking, and you're not even interested in it. And I'm not one of those people that likes to hit mute when, I hate Joe Buck. I'm not one of those people at all, that goes out there. But there are times that you do mute the announcers. And I didn't have an experience necessarily like you had with remote announcers before. But one thing that got me, and your line here in our dialogue said, it reminded me that the World Cup back when it was I think it was in Russia or South Korea maybe, but it was one of these that the announcers were there, but you didn't get the cameras. The cameras were all wacky. So it was weird because I guess we get used to the way that Americans film and produce and direct games, that you'd be watching the game and all of a sudden in the middle of the game, you're seeing a highlight in slow motion, and there's, soccer doesn't stop. And I'm a soccer fan, especially when it comes to the U.S. national team or World Cup. I like the countries playing, but it's like, it completely ruins the flow. So kind of on the same page that you're saying, trying to watch the game, it's nonstop, no timeouts, nothing. Yes, it's slow and boring for those that don't like the sport, but I love it, happen to love it. And I don't need this replay of a ball getting kicked 35 yards out, like not even close to the goal, when the play is developing to go up the field. Like, it just, I understand your pain. I think we all have these pet peeves, I guess. And yeah, but I know I did hear, and I don't know if you're a hockey fan, but I did hear today Mike Milbury, who's one of the lead guys on NBC Sports for NHL, is entering the bubble of the NHL. So my hope is that at least they're going to have some real announcers in their two facilities that they're having their games coming August 1st.
Yeah, and again, it's a different situation, I think, because it's kind of forced. It's Korean baseball, and it wouldn't be on normally. So, but I don't need to see Carl Ravage's, his living room or bedroom or closet or wherever but just pay attention. Tell me what's going on in the game. Am I going to know who's in left field? No, but you should. You should.
Do your homework. Yeah, you're not a podcast. You're not.
This is what it's like. Hey, Beef, this is great. Fly ball to left field, and they go on and on. It's like 98% BS and 2% game.
You almost think that they would put some up and comers on for this type of thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought this morning or yesterday morning at 4:55. I'm an early riser. I thought, I sure hope it's not like this when college football comes back. I sure hope Clemson in South Carolina is not a yuck fest, or Clemson and whoever, NC State. They're not yucking about what's on the wall behind them because they're broadcasting from their extra bedroom. Put them in a studio or tell them to be professional. So that's my gripe of the week.
I love it. Hey, I gotta tell you, that's a great looking shirt.
You like that? You can have one. Well, wait a second. You're gonna have one. It's in the mail. It's in the mail to me, then it'll be in the mail to you. If anybody out there wants one of these babies, I mean, not the massive, what do you call those pecs? I don't even know what they are. I haven't used them in so long, I don't even know what they are. If anybody out here wants one, I'll put a link in the show notes. We'll drop a link. They're available to help support. I almost forgot to even plug it, Beef. Help support the show. We want to do a live show, and in case you don't know, those aren't free. It requires some software that's not free if you want all the bells and whistles. So we don't want them all, but we want a couple, especially the kind that make us look better.
That costs a lot of money for that, though.
We'll have to be on the lifetime plan for that one. But anyway, I've enjoyed talking to you this week, Beef. And I'll drop the link for the shirts and other stuff. There's other stuff. You can even have a Sluggo mask if you want. Though I was worried about putting a mask that says Sluggo and somebody misreads it and like slug me right in the mouth. We'll drop it.
I saw cell phone cases. I mean, we're going to be fully stocked with stuff. It's awesome. It's a cool little store. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we're gonna have Sluggo everything. I'm trying to get the boxer shorts. I'm just joking.
I already got my slider. I got slider shirt, so it's coming in the mail too. So I'm the first customer of Sluggo store. Yeah.
Slider Cregan will be wearing a Sluggo shirt. There's onesies in there too. I mean, he may be a little old for that, but
he's a little big for that. Yeah.
There's onesies. There's onesies in there if you're into that. Got some babies. So anyway, Beef, I've enjoyed it, man. Next week, producer Amy, take us out.
Producer Amy, how'd we do tonight?
I think that sounds pretty good.